the former friends turned adversaries fiercely duelled, culminating in Skanderbeg beheading Ibrahim and displaying his head atop a pike.
Whoa! He killed his own friend? And then paraded... Nah, bro. He killed his own friend, beheaded him, and then literally flexed his head and paraded it. That is the most diabolical thing. Bro, you knew this man. I'm doing it. I'm finally doing it, okay? Everyone was like, oh, kings and generals
released. In his newly built imperial palace in Constantinople,
I saw it. Honestly, you know, I just kind of wanted to do some suggestions first, let the videos marinate, get people that watch it first, and then, you know, do it. I still have to go drop an Epic History TV reaction too, but I'm probably going to do that much later.
Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire gazed upon a map of his realm. While his northern enemies in Serbia and Hungary had been subdued in the years after the siege of Belgrade, old and new enemies alike to the west, south and east occupied the Sultan's mind. Skanderbeg's rebellion still burned hot in Albania, with no end in sight. Morea, under its two despots, was aflame in civil war. Lastly, Trebizond was in the process of forming a grand military coalition against his realm. In today's episode, we will be looking at wars that preoccupied Mehmed II in the decades after his famous siege of Constantinople against the Albanians and the last remnants of the Eastern Roman Empire.
So the Eastern Roman Empire
Every
didn't
week,
fall
we release
in
3 new exclusive videos for our members and patrons.
53, interesting, okay. Yeah, Albanian rebel. Yo, I was wondering about this for a while, like...
And YouTube members via the links in the description and pinned comment. Thanks to our support. By the time of Sultan Mehmed II's ascension to the Ottoman throne in 1451, the Albanian revolt, under the leadership of Skanderbeg, had been active for over 7 long years. During this period, the Albanian leader had won countless victories over various Turkish armies, with remarkable feats of resourcefulness and perseverance.
Yeah, this guy was unstoppable.
However, the recent wars had taken an economic toll on the rebelling regions, as many Albanian towns and pastures were left in a state of ruin, thus causing famine to hit the country by the turn of the decade. By 1450, this high cost for independence had caused some members of the League of Leisure, such as the noble families of Arianeti and the Kajini, to break off ties with Skanderbeg and conclude separate peace deals with the Sublime Porte. With his political
bro, peace? You think the Ottomans are just going to leave you there? Hell no. Look how small they are. They're just going to get gobbled up.
Situation at home deteriorating, Skanderbeg concluded a hasty treaty with King Alfonso V of Aragon and Naples in 1451, thus becoming his vassal in return for urgent aid against the Turks. The Western king himself had greater ambitions to establish a powerful Mediterranean empire and viewed Albania as his gateway to the Adriatic and the Balkans. With much-needed Western mercenaries, food supplies and funding pouring into Albania by the end of the year, Skanderbeg now had the means to continue his resistance against Edirne. In addition to foreign aid, he would also attempt to unify the disenchanted Albanian nobility with his marriage to the daughter of George Arianeti, concluding with the House of Arianeti re-entering the League of Leisure. All of these political and military developments couldn't have come any sooner, as an Ottoman provincial army of 30,000, led by Tahip Pasha, invaded Albania in 1452. Mustering his host of 14,000, Skanderbeg surprisingly marched on the invading army, which unexpectedly split it.
It's Skanderbeg! Bro, Skanderbeg is the GOAT. He's the GOAT. Of course he's gonna march on them. This guy is beast mode, unironically.
In half when entering the famine-ridden region. Not expecting any resistance from the locals, the outnumbered and oblivious detachment of 12,000 men, led by Hamza Pasha, began their siege on the newly built fortress town of Modric, without scouting the local region. Knowing this, Skanderbeg ambushed and routed the Ottoman force beneath the wall of Modric on July 21st, even capturing Hamza Pasha himself.
Wow!
In the following days, the Albanian leader built on his victory with another against Tahip Pasha's now isolated host of 18,000 on the nearby plain of Mechad, this time killing the Turkish general during the heat of battle. Between the two engagements, over 7,000 Ottoman soldiers were slain, and many more were wounded.
This man is unstoppable. This man is unstoppable.
Although once again faced with defeat in Albania, the Ottoman government under Mehmed II was too preoccupied with preparations to besiege Constantinople to respond effectively against the rebellion. Consequently, in 1453, Skanderbeg chose to invade Ottoman northern Macedonia while the Sultan's armies were distant, mired beneath the formidable Theodosian walls. His goal was to—
I still stand by what I said. Siege of Constantinople was one of the most disappointing, underwhelming siege. Let me tell you something, right? You know what one of my subscribers said? Like the perfect analogy that described the siege of Constantinople. And this shit still makes me laugh. he said the siege of Constantinople, and I quote,
is like Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson.
That is such an amazing analogy because of how true it is. Oh my goodness. 10,000 guys, and the thing is that blows my mind is how the Ottomans almost lost. Like they would have lost had those reinforcements come. Like 10,000 men. Oh, but the walls were so strong. The walls were
So strong. The walls were so strong.
You have 10,000 men defending a city as big as Constantinople. Do you actually think they have enough men to garrison the entire walls? No! No! Hell no! No, if they had 20,000, I would have been like, all right, yeah, 20,000. That's 1/4 of what the Ottomans had, which was 100,000. You know, and when you're defending the enemy, you're supposed to outnumber them 3-1. Well, when you're attacking, my bad. When you're attacking, you're supposed to outnumber them, you know, at least 3-1, right? Which the Ottomans heavily did, right? So at least they follow that logic. But bro, 10,000 men trying to defend a city as big as Constantinople. Bro, like, not just that, but a decrepit, aged city. Okay, this wasn't even Constantinople in its prime. It's not even Constantinople in its prime, bro. That's why I said that was so disappointing. Like, I see so many Turkish people got so angry at me. Not just Turkish people, more so Muslim people who got so angry because I said that, oh, it was disappointing. You want to know what was hype about Constantinople? The defenders. I was shocked that the defenders even lasted as long as they did. That's the only reason why I even enjoyed that siege. Not really for the Ottomans attacking. And then people want to get angry at me in my comments and they dislike bomb my video, which doesn't even affect me, by the way. It really does not. Disliking does nothing on YouTube, by the way. So it's like saying water is wet, the sky is blue. 100,000, bruh. I'm not like, seriously. Like, seriously. Because before I watched Constantinople, like, I always used to hear so many Muslims, so many people like overhype this. Oh, we took the most formidable city in the world, which, yeah, it was the most formidable city in the world at the time. Oh, making it seem like it was this arduous task that was so hard, which it was. But it was like, how the hell are you struggling against 10,000 men that don't even have enough men to man every part of the city properly to defend? That's the problem. The walls are strong, even though it's not in its prime anymore, right? But there's no point in having walls when you don't have men to properly defend it? Come on, guys. It's like saying the sky is blue. You can have a mighty castle, but if you don't have enough manpower to use it properly, well, your castle isn't mighty. The enemy could just walk in.
To recapture the fortress town of Svetigrad, which he had lost to Sultan Murad back in 1448. Launching his offensive in the spring, the Albanian leader invaded the region and began devastating and looting the local countryside. In a surprising counter near the plain of Polog, Skanderbeg's army was able to defeat and rout a local Turkish provincial host under the command of Ibrahim Pasha, a former friend of the Albanian lord during his time in service under the Ottoman army. In the heat of battle, the former friends turned adversaries fiercely duelled, culminating in Skanderbeg beheading Ibrahim and displaying his head atop a pike.
Whoa! He killed his own friend? And then paraded? Nah, bro. He killed his own friend, beheaded him, and then literally flexed his head and paraded it. That is the most diabolical thing. Bro, you knew this man. You were comrades. You were friends, bro. And you could do that without no shit? Nah. Skanderbeg, fake friend, confirmed. Guys, don't trust friends, bruh. This is moral of the story. Don't trust friends, bro. Your friends are fake as hell, man. Much more fake than you realize.
The one-sided Battle of Polog would result in a further 3,000 Ottomans dead. However, in spite of yet another great victory, the Albanian lord's invasion of northern Macedonia would halt with the shocking news of Constantinople's fall the following month.
Yeah, bro. You finna get the full might of the Ottoman army.
With the hostile northern house of Dukagjini, Skanderbeg turned his attention to recapturing the fortress of Berat.
I actually did not. Usually I'm able to like hear when I'm talking, but I did not hear what you said.
In 1454, after making peace with the hostile northern house of Dukagjini, Skanderbeg turned his attention to recapturing the fortress of Berat, which had been lost to a surprise Ottoman assault in 1450. Receiving essential Neapolitan artillerymen for his upcoming campaign, the Lord of Albania advanced on the fortress in 1455 and laid siege to it with his force of 14,000. After several months of being besieged, the demoralized Ottoman garrison of Berat began negotiations to surrender the fortress. Hearing of this great news, an overconfident Skanderbeg split his host and moved down south in order to besiege the Turkish-held town of Vlora, leaving 6,000 men behind under Mirza Thopia to finalize the surrender of Berat. However, unbeknown to him, a 20,000-strong Ottoman army, sent by the Sultan himself under the leadership of Isa Bey, had already headed to relieve Berat from the east. In a costly error, the besieging Albanian army was surrounded and virtually destroyed in an ambush sometime in July. Mirza Thopia, thousands of veteran Albanians, and the vast majority of Neapolitan artillery crews were killed in the engagement. The major Albanian defeat at the siege of Berat was to be a massive blow to the Albanian revolt. Shaken by the great disaster, Moisi Arianiti, one of Skanderbeg's most trusted and able officers, had defected to the Ottomans. Mehmed II had promised him a large pension and freedom to rule over all of his hereditary lands in Albania if he helped his armies defeat Skanderbeg. While the Sultan marched on Belgrade in 1456, Moisi marched on Albania at the head of a 15,000-strong Ottoman provincial army. However, like the Sultan at Belgrade, he would be dealt a significant defeat by Skanderbeg on the plains of Aranik near the town of Iban.
You cannot stop Skanderbeg. This guy is the Albanian Napoleon, bro. Oh my goodness.
To 10,000 men,
Albanian Napoleon
territory. Despite his treason and great defeat, Skanderbeg would pardon the disgraced Albanian lord and restore his titles and lands to him by the end of the year.
Why would he do that?
Although Moisi had been defeated,
he's just gonna betray him
defections from the League of Leisure occurred in the following months, as the Albanian nobility began to waver in their support for the increasingly despotic Skanderbeg, whom they now viewed as a more significant threat to their estates than the Ottomans. In 1456, George Balchitz defected to the Ottomans by surrendering the fortress of Madritsa to a Turkish garrison as an act of protest against his uncle's infringement of the rights and territories of his family. Although he was jailed for his treason and sent to Naples, a far more serious and shocking defection came the following year by Hamza Khosroati, Skanderbeg's nephew, who had been by his side since the start of the rebellion back in 1443.
Wow.
In return for his defection, Mehmed II had promised to make Hamza the governor of Albania. However, according to some sources, the nobleman may also have felt threatened by the birth of Skanderbeg's son the previous year, and so took up arms to claim his self-perceived birthright over the domains of the Khosroati family. With the Sublime Porte's war in Hungary and Serbia coming to a pause after its defeat in Belgrade in 1456, it now turned its full attention to Albania. By the summer of 1457, Hamza and his retinue had joined an Ottoman provincial army of 50,000 headed straight to Albania, led by the victor of Berat himself, Isa Bey. Feigning retreat to the mountains, Skanderbeg's host of 10,000 gathered together, while Ottoman raiders ravaged the countryside all the way to the Adriatic. It wasn't until the Turkish host was south of Lach in early September that the Albanian lord descended from the forested mountains and ambushed the invader camp in 3 separate directions. In the chaos, over 15,000 Turks were killed and another 15,000 were captured, alongside Hamza himself. Pardoning his nephew and sending him away to Naples, Skanderbeg had once again won a great victory against a numerical...
This guy, bro, I know I keep saying this, but this guy's like a freaking unstoppable Gatling gun. And that loss that he took, no, he won that siege at Berat. Or Berat, I don't know how the hell you pronounce that name, bruh. The hell, man? This guy has taken 0 losses. That's so, bruh. I love this guy. This guy's boss. This guy's boss.
A superior foe. Unfortunately for the Sublime Porte, the bleeding ulcer that was the Albanian rebellion would now enter into its 15th year with no end in sight. While bloody war raged on in Albania, Sultan Mehmed II also set out to conquer the last Eastern Roman rump states of Morea and Trebizond and become the undisputed sole Caesar of the Romans. Morea had become the most prosperous province of the Eastern Roman Empire in the decades before the fall of Constantinople. Under the various members of the Palaiologos dynasty, the region had been home to a Roman cultural and economic revival during the 15th century. However, by the 1450s, the two quarrelsome younger brothers of the late Constantine XI, Thomas and Demetrios, both ruled the region as rival co-despots from their respective capitals of Patras and Mithras.
Bro, you do not have time for this. You do not, bro. It blows my mind how selfish people can be, bro. Like how human nature is just... human nature just... Bro, Constantinople fell. You have the Ottomans literally trying to finish and gobble you up, and you're still freaking quarreling. You're still quarreling? Really? You're quarreling with each other? Bro, you have much better things. Oh my... That is just bizarre to me, man.
This political divide in Morea had, in the months before the Great Siege, resulted in the violent sacking of the region by Ottoman forces, which prevented the ruling brothers from sending reinforcements to the Roman capital. In spite of the shocking fall of Constantinople and the recent sacking, the two brothers were able to stay in power under Ottoman vassalship, where they were obliged to pay over 10,000 gold pieces a year to Constantinople. Regardless of their new status under the Sultan, a popular revolt arose in Morea by the end of 1453. The initiators of the revolt were 30,000 Moreot Albanians, led by the nobleman Peter Boer, who felt displeased with the overtaxation policies of Thomas and Demetrios, caused by the need to pay annual tribute to the Turks. Soon, many like-minded Greek-speaking peoples joined the revolt, and they hailed Manuel Kantakouzenos as the new despot of all Morea. Powerless against the revolt, and besieged in their respective capitals, Thomas and Demetrios requested Ottoman intervention in the region to restore order. By 1454, the desperate pleas of the co-despots were answered by Turhan Bey's invasion of Morea, resulting in the crushing of the revolt.
Oh my goodness gracious me,
Although the brothers continued to rule in the region, by 1457, they were already behind on multiple years of tributary payments to the Sultan. The following year, Mehmed issued an ultimatum to his vassals, stating that they must either pay all their tribute or surrender all their lands to him. Hearing no response from the two brothers, The Sultan personally led his armies into the Morea in spring. Along the journey to the south, the last remnants of the Latin Duchy of Athens were conquered without any resistance. Crossing over the destroyed remains of the once great Hexamilian walls, Turkish troops began besieging the highly fortified Ark of Corinth and captured it after a 4-month bloody struggle. Ottoman victories persisted with the fall of Phlius, Akova, Rupeli, Muchli, Agio, Kalavrita, and even Thomas's capital of Patras during the same period. Defeated militarily, the two despot brothers agreed on a peace with Mehmed, where he would keep a hold of his conquests in Morea in return for a lower annual tribute of 3,000 gold pieces. Leaving Ömer Bey behind as the governor of Ottoman Morea, the Sultan departed for Constantinople with thousands of Greek-speaking Moreans whom he intended to resettle in his new capital. Nonetheless, this new peace in the Morea was to be fleeting, as in 1459, the self-destructive struggle between the two co-despot brothers had shattered any semblance of order in their realms. The more pro-Western and pro-Unionist Thomas had broken ties with the pro-Ottoman and anti-Unionist Demetrios. In February, the desperate despot invaded the lands of his brother and Ömer Bey, but failed to take Acrocorinth and his former capital of Patras in twin sieges. During the expedition, only the town of Kalavrita was taken from the Ottomans. More successfully, the fortresses of Karatina, Ordonia, Kastritsa, Kalamai, Zanata, Leuktron, and almost all of the Mani Peninsula were taken from Demetrios. In addition to Thomas's military campaign, the previously subdued Albanians of Morea under Peter Boer also rose in an opportunistic rebellion against the two brothers.
And you know what's funny is, by definition, right? had these remnants survived, they would have been the actual successors to the Roman Empire, because I don't know if they're still calling themselves Roman at this point or not, but they have different realms, but they all used to be a part of the Roman Empire. But not Constantinople's gone. You know, the central HQ, essentially, in layman's terms, really and truly, they're kind of just doing their own thing. Like, now they're just kind of, independent, right? But because they were from the Roman Empire, they're still carrying on the legacy of Rome. Like, this is what actual, like, succession is, right? Not some outside foreign power coming and conquering something. Like, no. Like, these people here are the actual successors of Rome. But they're gonna be destroyed shortly, so...
in the mass pillaging of the Greek lands in the south of the region. Back in Constantinople, Mehmed II was finalizing a treaty with the Republic of Ragusa on the Adriatic coast, which saw the maritime domain becoming an official Ottoman vassal state. When the Sultan heard of Thomas's insubordination and the chaos that befell now blood-soaked Morea, he went into a complete rage and removed Ömer Bey from his post and fiefs, replacing him with his son-in-law Ahmed Bey as local governor. By the middle of 1459, Turkish forces once again entered Morea, resulting in Thomas retreating to his new capital of Liontarry, where he was defeated in an open battle beneath the walls of the town. Luckily for the rebelling despot, the local Ottoman army of Ahmed Bey was short on supplies and too hampered with disease to conduct a complete siege on Liontarry, and thus retreated back to friendly territory by the fall of 1459. During the pause in hostilities, Thomas began reconciliation talks with Demetrios in a small church in the village of Kastritsa in an attempt to unify their strength against the Ottomans and marauding Albanians.
Yeah, now you wanna freaking do that. A bit too late.
However, this attempt by the brothers to unify their realms was to be fleeting, as by the spring of 1460, Mehmed's armies once again invaded
Literally
Morea.
Too late for that
In a short siege by Grand Vizier Mahmud Pasha, Demetrios' capital of Mistras surrendered on May 29th, exactly 7 years to the day of Constantinople's fall. In return for his subordination, Demetrios and his household were given estates in Thrace, where the former despot would live until his natural death in 1470. In the months after the siege, the Albanian revolt of Peter Boer was put down again, while dozens of towns all across the region began mass surrendering to the Sultan. By the end of the year, all of Morea, with the exception of Venetian possessions in the region and the town of Menemvasia, had surrendered to Ottoman authorities. Unlike his brother, Thomas did not attempt to strike a deal with Mehmed and fled alongside his household to first Venetian-controlled Corfu and
Bro, Thomas, this guy is so trash. He keeps getting defeated and he's still fighting.
then to Rome, where he would unsuccessfully push for a crusade against the Ottomans. The former despot would die in 1465, but not before claiming the imperial title of Emperor of Constantinople. After his death, his eldest son and heir, Andreas, continued pushing for a crusade, until he was forced to sell all of his titles to first King Charles VIII of France, then later to Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon, due to financial troubles. After over 200 years since
crazy.
Michael VIII's ascension to power in Constantinople, the Palaiologos dynasty had now ceased to rule over any lands in their name. While the Palaiologos dynasty came to an effective end, a far more illustrious Roman dynasty of the Komneni family still ruled from Trebizond in far-off eastern Anatolia.
Yeah, and again, these guys are also, by definition, actual successors to Rome. Do you see the pattern? Because a lot of people try to argue me that the Ottoman Empire is a successor to Rome. No. No. Like, these guys used to be a part of the Roman Empire. Again, once Constantinople fell, that was basically the end of the Roman Empire, but they're still around, right? They're still around. But now that Constantinople's gone, they're effectively independent. They're their own thing. So, but because they were a part of the Roman Empire, you know, they're not going to change overnight. Like, politically, their nationality or whatever would change, yeah, but they're still gonna succeed them, carry on the legacy of Rome somewhat. Like, their origins were Roman. Their origins came from Rome. That's how they're, like, without that, this wouldn't be around. And that's the thing about succession, or at least how I define succession. No, not even how I define it. No, like, that's succession. Like, you need to have origins from the progenitor. If you don't have origins from the progenitor, you're not the successor. Actually, now that I think about it, that's how the Mongols use the logic of succession. Going back to my Timur reactions, right? Timur couldn't claim to be the successor of Genghis Khan because he was a descendant of Genghis Khan, right? So he couldn't, even though he wanted to, but he couldn't. But unironically speaking, that's how succession works. So in layman's terms, because the Ottoman Empire is a foreign power, have zero origins from the Roman Empire, they can't claim to be the successor to Rome, plain and simple. But you want to know where they can claim succession? The Seljuk Empire, because that's literally the origins of the Ottoman Empire. So I unironically do believe that the Ottoman Empire is more so the successor to the Seljuk Empire than the Roman Empire. Like, no.
Coming to power in 1081, the family had ruled over the Byzantine Empire before being deposed in 1185 after the tyrannic reign of Andronikos I. However, by the time of the Fourth Crusade in 1204, the grandchildren of the deposed emperor had managed to carve out a section of the empire for themselves and their successors in eastern Anatolia, centered...
Yeah, again, do you hear that? This was a part of Rome. Without Rome, this wouldn't be a thing. So they have Roman lineage. They have Roman legacy. I'm done.
In the city of Trebizond.
If you still want to argue that, I'm not even going to argue that anymore.
It was from here that the Komneni family would rule over the next 200 years. Under the reign of Alexios III, the state entered its golden age as the city of Trebizond became an important trading hub in the Black Sea and also a center for the arts and Byzantine architecture. Nonetheless, this golden age would end with the death of Alexios III in 1390, which coincided with the start of Sultan Bayezid I's thunderous campaigns of consolidation in Anatolia against the Turkic Beyliks of the region. By the turn
Oh
of
my
the century,
goodness!
it seemed
That freaking blue Beylik is gone!
as if the armies of the Sultan would sweep the empire.
Oh, if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I always would wonder, like, why the hell is that freaking Beylik still
Trebizond off
there?
the map.
It's finally gone.
The disastrous Ottoman defeat at the Battle of Ankara would deter such Turkish ambitions for another half-century. During this time of brief respite, the rulers of Trebizond adopted a diplomatic strategy of marrying off female members of their dynasty to neighboring Turkic powers to protect themselves against the Ottomans. Such Turkic powers in the past included the Beylik of Taceddin, the Karakoyunlu, and most recently the Akkoyunlu, under their ambitious ruler Sultan Uzun Hasan. After a destructive Ottoman raid in 1456, which saw the capturing and ransoming of 2,000 Pontic Greeks, John IV became an official Ottoman vassal, paying the Sublime Porte an annual tribute of 3,000 gold pieces. However, the unsatisfied Trapezuntine ruler would spend the rest of the decade discreetly building up a military coalition against Mehmed II, which included the Karamanids, Jandarids, the Akkoyunlu, and Christian princes of Georgia and Mingrelia. Nonetheless, such grand plans for an anti-Ottoman alliance were cut short by the death of John in 1460 and the ascension of
He was cooking. Holy shit. Imagine if that had freaking transpire. Holy shit.
his nephew, the 9-year-old Alexios V. The reign of the child emperor was to be brief, as his uncle, David Komnenos, usurped power in the capital after only a few months, thus imprisoning the young Alexios and his supporters. With Trebizond having missed its last few annual tributes to the Sublime Porte and political instability running rampant in the country, Mehmed II decided to undertake a military campaign against the Roman rump state in 1461.
Roman rump state? No! It's the successor to the Roman state. Small as hell, but Constantinople was small as shit too compared to what the Roman Empire used to be, so...
Gathering a massive army of over 50,000 in Bursa and over 100 ships in Constantinople, the Sultan marched east to the tune of war drums. The rulers of eastern Anatolia, and even many in the Ottoman military, did not know Mehmed's true ambitions, instead believing that the campaign to come was going to be directed at the Karamanids, or even the Mamluks of Egypt. When confronted by a military judge about the plans for the upcoming campaign, Mehmed responded, "If the hair of my beard knew my plans, I would pull it out and burn it." It was only when the army reached Ankara that the Ottoman Sultan shared his true intentions with his officers. Having known about John IV's secret coalition, Mehmed suddenly began marching his host north towards the Jandarid Beylik. In a short siege, the Jandarid capital of Sinop was captured, and the rest of the Beylik was annexed. The army then marched towards the Akkoyunlu of Erzincan, where the local region was laid to waste by Ottoman raiders, resulting in the desperate Uzun Hasan concluding a hasty peace with Mehmed. Now that Emperor David was isolated from all of his local allies, the joint Ottoman army and navy besieged Trebizond in July of 1461. However, unlike Constantine XI, the violent 32-day siege on his capital proved too much for the Trapezuntine monarch. Panicking at the sight of Mehmed's grand host beneath his walls, David surrendered the city upon the Sultan's promise of granting him and his household estates in the Balkans, similar to the deal struck with the deposed despot Demetrios a year prior. Gathering all their wealth, the entire Komneni family was transported to Constantinople by year's end, thus officially ending the Trebizond Empire. Yet, unlike the...
Can we get an F in chat to the true successors of Rome? Well, we still have this holdout here, but that's...
Palaiologi, the fate of the Komneni was to end in bloodshed. Seeing the Trapezuntine imperial family as a significant threat to his claim as Caesar of Rome, Mehmed imprisoned David and his 3 sons alongside the deposed...
Yeah, why would Mehmed feel insecure? Because like I said, these people are the actual successors to Rome, and he knows that. Mehmed is just LARPing as freaking Caesar, literally.
The 5th in 1463. Shortly after their imprisonment, all 5 male members of the House of Komneni were executed, with David's daughter Anne entering the Sultan's harem. With Morea and Trebizond conquered, Sultan Mehmed II had now become the undisputed sole Caesar of the Romans. However, if Mehmed thought he had finally...
Again, guys, remember my logic that I used with how the Mongols would define their succession, because that's actually how succession works. If you don't have lineage to the progenitor, you can't succeed them.
Achieved peace in his realm, he would be sorely mistaken, as a certain impaling voivode in Wallachia would ignite a bloody war in the Balkans in the following years. In the next episode of our series on the Ottomans, we will be looking at the wars of Vlad III Dracul and his famous struggle against Mehmed. To ensure you don't miss that, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our patrons and YouTube members can...
Guys, if you made it all the way here to the end of the video and you're new to my channel, you have any suggestions for me, comment down below. Again, if you're an active viewer, I highly recommend you go check out my channel membership, because I have a lot of requests to react to this, react to that. If you're my member, you know, your reactions are done like this, bruh. Quickly, you know, you get more priority. Like I said, I'm just gonna link my channel membership in the comments at this point, so you can just click on the video where I explain all of that and the perks and whatnot, because I feel like I'm kind of bored of repeating this stuff. But anyways, man, go check out my other reactions on my channel. I have a lot at this point, like a lot, so much, freaking hell, man. Like the grind doesn't stop. I don't even know what the hell am I grinding towards. I don't even know. I'm just posting videos at this point, freaking just posting videos, and yeah, just posting videos until I die, I guess, right? But anyways, man, hit the bell button, man, check out my stuff, like the video again. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.